DuckTales, Season 1, Episode 16, The Golden Lagoon of White Agony Plains.
And back to the nice long ones for you.
Yes. And the arrival of the woman.
Yes, the woman.
Yeah, it's still not Irene Adler. If anything, it would probably be more of a Missy.
Maybe like a mixture of both.
A mixture of Missy and River, not so much Irene Adler, because the actual Irene Adler had no relationship with him. It was more, she was an intriguing enigma. There was no like actual relationship. She was.
But it's
just
still a lot more fun to say the woman, because it's just it seems like something Scrooge would call her privately.
True.
The woman. Which woman? The woman.
That woman. No, not that woman. The woman.
And then Beakley or somebody would have to say guilt. And sort of explain it away from him so that he doesn't get annoyed too much. Which at that point, if he's bringing her up, he's probably annoyed anyway.
Yeah.
I realize that Scrooge is a. We always knew Scrooge was cheap, but it's just sort of fun to watch him.
Yeah.
Use his cheap but frugal. Frugal would be the appropriate term. Is frugality.
I didn't get rich by spending money. I got rich by beating my enemies.
Yeah. And making them spend their money.
Yeah, by putting plastic lining in your suit to steal dip, and bringing baggies along to steal all of the free buffet.
Hey, if it works, it works. Okay.
Yeah, I am not judging him. I actually put in my notes, Scrooge's genius for getting rich.
Yeah.
And then the quote.
Yeah, you can if you're willing to take the little things to do all the little things to save money, it adds up. Buying off-brand because it's the same thing. Like if you're buying a barrel of oats, just buy the off-brand. It's the same thing. Milk, buy the off-brand. It's the same thing.
Exactly. The only problem with that is even the off-brand of vegetarian milk is vegan milk is still expensive, which if you're lactose intolerant or you can't drink milk, that is a downside.
Yeah, but just the general philosophy.
Because there is no such thing as off-brand, because even the off-brands are super expensive.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, where you can, take the off-brand, take the generic, because,
Oh, of course.
Yeah, because if you do that...
Actually, I steer clear of things with name brands unless I can take the brand off of them, because I find that really tacky. Like, those sweatshirts that have Adidas and big bold print, or the big Nike check. I'm like, yeah, no. There are a couple of things I'm like, oh, I love this color, and ooh, the fabric is, fuck no, it's got that stupid Nike check.
Oh yeah, the vast majority of the T-shirts in my wardrobe have no labels. There's is it Hanes Comfort Soft? I really love that fabric, and it has no labels. It's just a flat color, so it's perfect. That's like most of my T-shirts.
Yeah, and I mean, I do appreciate designs if they're the cool designs, like, something with a TARDIS on it, or
it's something you care about, but
exactly. But name brands, you're basically paying someone else to advertise them.
Yeah, you're paying them to advertise to you, and you're also paying
them
to advertise for them.
you're paying them to be a freaking billboard.
That too.
I
Yeah.
am very much
both
against
sides
that.
of it. You're.
So,
And that was
Off-
Frugal Corner with with Dex and Doc.
yes.
But yeah, and yeah, and Glomgold is apparently thinks he's in a relationship with Scrooge's old flame.
Yeah.
Thinks. Being...
Oh my gosh. What is it? Is it a monster? It's worse. It's my ex. Wait, ex-girlfriend? Ex-partner? Ex-rival? Ex-everything? Ooh, smoochy, smoochy. Oh god, those triplets, they are such shippers.
Oh, yeah.
It is like a creepy level at this point.
Well, they're at that age that's what kids
True.
do. Like, oh! Yeah, it's that sort of... where they're at the age where you make that sound. The,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of thing.
Ooh, the first comes love, first comes marriage, then comes the baby in the baby carriage.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's at that. Yeah, they're at that exact age. But yeah, Glomgold.
Third.
Oh gosh, Glomgold, make make Goldie jealous by dancing with a little kid.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Oh.
What is it with Dewey, guy? Seriously, the adults tend to use him. It's always Dewey. There's Launchpad's best friend is a 10-year-old boy, and then Glomgold trying to dance with him.
In the middle of a room filled with reminders of all of his failures.
Yeah.
Remember every black day I ever stalked you. No, just listen to 10.
I was just watching the Town Called Christmas, or whatever that episode was called, and at the very beginning with the beam me aboard one of the ship, land me on one of the ships. Don't land me on a Dalek ship when I'm holding a piece of a broken Dalek. So what does he do? He's carrying handles with him onto a Cyberman ship. Right after he says, don't put me on a Dalek ship when I'm carrying a Dalek. Well, it wasn't a Dalek ship, and you're not carrying a Dalek.
Yeah. It's interesting that you would surround yourself with the mementos of your defeats. I suppose they're as good a wins as he's going to have.
Yeah, you see, Glomgold and Scrooge are basically the master and the doctor. And it's all just to get his attention and be like, see, I can be as good as you. No, you can't.
Yeah, and apparently at some point Scrooge was stuck in a timeless demon dimension.
Yeah, right at trying to stop an uprising that Goldie started.
That does sound like like the Doctor.
Yeah, it sounds like the Doctor and River comparing notes on their timelines.
It was cute though.
It was their little banter and all of the.
Have we done this yet? No.
Exactly.
Uh.
You can't blame me for that. It was over 100 years ago.
How old are you?
Yeah, well.
I love that. It's like during the Gold Rush. It's like, Gold Rush? How old are you?
Yeah, at some point it's just sort of... It's the same problem that...
that the Doctor has. He lost count.
Yeah. Well, and well,
Webby hasn't
less
though.
less so lost count, and more that the kind of you know the kind of duck he's supposed to be. The sort of you know his personality, his attitudes. When he was, when it makes sense for him to be from, keeps getting further and further back from the modern day. It's like Magneto, who originally was, a child and, dealing with, Germany during a Jewish child in World War II Germany, so that backstory keeps slipping further and further back, so they have to deal with it in some way or other. Because at this point, like, having like the 2000s movies, it was stretching it, and then now it's just like, okay, this is this is starting to get out of hand. So at this point, we're just going to give up trying to make it make sense. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Um. But yeah, and this is where they plant the this is going to be important later, the Eye of the Demigorgon sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's like this will be important later.
Yeah,
Of
I don't think
course.
forget about it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
this.
but I mean, it's understandable Scrooge forgot about it because they were comparing notes on their different misadventures, and he was too busy trying to one up her to actually pay attention to every tiny detail. It's more like, oh, you started that uprising, I stopped it. Haha. So the whole Eye of the Demigorgon, it is understandable he overlooked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if and the nice thing, he's just like, even though at the end, you have, you know, it's like, Glomgold, haha, I've won. Nope.
Of course not.
Guilt did, though that's a lot of gold, and in liquid form, that's gonna be a very heavy thing.
Yeah, yeah, it would.
You're gonna need
Also,
a, like a,
you'd have thought either that was a really, really big wall, or it would have taken. They would have probably melted that glacier pretty easily, considering how hot that molten gold would have been.
Yeah, but then again, they also survived 5 years in a glacier.
True.
science
Although,
is
I mean,
not their strong
they're,
suit.
I mean, they are pretty immortal,
Yeah,
especially Scrooge being hundreds of years old.
yeah, at this point, yeah, Dewey's never going to inherit because Scrooge is never going to die.
Yeah, Louis needs to just lay off the whole will thing because there's not going to be a will.
Well,
There's not going to be an inheritance because,
unless there was an accident.
dude, you know how many accidents Scrooge survived? I mean, look at his pilot.
Besides, to be fair, if Scrooge did kick the bucket, all his money would probably go to Donald first.
Actually, depending on first of all, the will, but second of all, how much of his money is invested in his company. A lot of it probably would end up going to the company.
True.
Well, it would be locked up in the company
Exactly.
already.
Exactly.
It wouldn't necessarily go to the company. So if
Well,
he has
that's
liquid
what I meant.
assets, like,
That's what I meant.
yeah,
Unless
his liquid
the
assets are
shares
going to be,
the shares would probably be divvied up, but
yes, or
unless
handed down into one, and then eventually Donald would pass them on to the trio at some point. But But yeah, at this point, yeah, Scrooge is just don't bother worrying about inheriting anything. He's not going to die.
Yeah. If he does, he'll just regenerate again.
They'll reweave him.
Yeah. I mean, he is the Doctor after all.
These are very obscure. This is some slightly obscure. The weave and whatnot.
Yeah, anybody who knows the voice actor would know what we're talking about.
No, he's talking about the whole weaving thing.
The loom.
And actually, it's not weaving, it's looming.
Looming, yeah.
It's called looming.
Yeah, I corrected myself just like a second later. Just there.
That's how they reproduce.
Yes, that's because of the curse of
the Pythian
curse. The Time Lords can't procreate, so they can't procreate naturally, so they have to sort of
genetically engineer themselves.
Yeah, they have to loom new members, and those are restricted, and there's only so many houses, and the birth rate is very restricted, and you have to have like one person in your house fully die before you can loom another one.
Yeah.
Dude, that sucks. That must be a horrible sex life.
But then again,
hey, you can still have sex, you just can't procreate because they are sterile because of all of the genetic engineering and manipulation that went into making them Time Lords and making them able to regenerate and survive the time stream and creating the Rassilon imprimatur that causes them able to sync up with their TARDIS. So because of all of that manipulation, it caused sterility. That's why it's called Pythia's curse, because Pythia was Rassilon's wife.
It's like, damn, that sex is so good, it made me regenerate.
Actually, there have been cases where somebody shagged to death.
Of course. Why not?
They had a heart attack because it was apparently so good.
Well,
what a way to go.
Death by snoo.
Well, and the whole thing, if you start dipping into the canon a little too deeply, you start getting off into these conflicting canons of, they said this time, but this time, and they're not, and then you have...
That's what happens when you have 5 decades, 5.5 decades worth of information and hundreds and hundreds of writers. Nobody can actually be an expert at Doctor Who when you're trying to write scripts for it, so they only know certain canon pieces, so they try to build around that.
Even if you knew all the canon, it would conflict, and you'd have to pick which canon you wanted to use.
Exactly.
Well, and the thing is also...
Plus, if you tie it in with the Target novels, the new novel, the Big Finish audios, and all of these other, the Doctor Who weekly magazine, monthly magazine, you end up with so many different conflicting canons anyways, that the writers of the show trying to build upon that, some of them are more versed in the audios, some of them are more versed in the books or the comics, so they take pieces out of there and build with that. Kate Stewart is actually from a fan-made film. Well, I say fan-made, but it was sort of it wasn't BBC officially BBC Doctor Who made. It was from Real Time Films back in the 90s, and that's where she originally comes from. But they made her canon within the series, within the television series. So
yeah. Well, anyway, before we get too much further into an aside gag, let's just get back to the Golden Lagoon. But yeah, the whole episode is basically, one-upping and trying to avoid traps set by the other, and oh, I noticed that, and I didn't notice that, and he knocks this apart, and then oh, that doesn't work, and then the whole thing kind of
Yeah.
culminates in the Goldie falling into the gold and then not burning because the eye of the Demigorgon we planted at the first of this.
Yeah,
A
okay,
few notes. A few notes. If they were both the way they were moving in that dumbwaiter wouldn't have worked because they were both moving the opposite end of the rope in the same direction. So they would end up climbing the dumbwaiter instead of going down. Or just standing still. You were supposed to follow me. I was frozen in a giant glacier. Scrooge McDuck, that can't be your excuse for everything.
Well,
Oh,
I mean,
Scroogey, it's the only reason that matters. That is totally a river line.
You're the doctor. That's not supposed to stop you.
Exactly.
so I have a question about the golden statue of her. I mean, yes, I understand the necklace or whatever made her impervious to being toasted alive like roasted duck. But how is a solid statue with like no that looked like there was no exit for her was made?
That is a good question.
Didn't they show there was a like the after and she was gone from the statue like it had a back off
It
of
was hollow.
Yeah, it was.
But how
Well,
did she get out of it
yeah.
to make it a solid statue? It's kind of like those Easter bunny chocolates where you bite into it and they're hollow inside. But how did she get out while it was still a solid piece of gold?
Many mysteries.
magic.
Yeah.
She teleported.
Yeah,
She used her vertex manipulator.
No,
yeah,
they just had a styrofoam copy of her and just made a mold of herself.
Yeah, but then you'd have seen it inside there.
Well, and the thing is, we already established that magic in this universe exists. I mean, if nothing else, from his favorite butler coming back. So, she teleported. Basically, Wizard did it.
Yeah.
in this universe, that's quite possibly a real explanation for things. Like, Wizard did it.
It was magic. Let's move on. Flinty and Goldie in this episode reminded me of the Master and Missy in that Cyberman episode. Where she's trying to be good, and then there he is luring her back to the bad side. Only, Goldie is a little less seductive than the Master.
Yeah, though, but the worst thing that came out of this episode is Glumgold is no longer going to be having the phase.
The what?
Glumgold will no longer have the phase thanks to Scrooge.
Oh, yeah. Wait, is that an entire bag of sausages?
Worst thing ever.
Also, Glomgold and his long-ass speeches, just like any horrible villain ever.
You caught me monologuing.
Yeah! And his delusions where...
His delusions of grandeur.
It reminds... It feels like it was just yesterday. It was just yesterday. We saw each other from across the room. And it was love at first sight. You realize we were all there. That's not how it happened at all. that he is a delusional dweeb and wants everything that Scrooge has.
Who plays Glumgold?
I'm not sure. Have to look it up. Ah, Goldie, I was so busy looking for treasure. I missed the one right in front of my face, stabbing me in the back.
I kind of want to see more of her.
I do hope she comes back. She hasn't yet, but the season's like still pretty early in, so hopefully she'll come back.
Oh, I'm sure they'll use her for something.
Ooh, tell us about your date and the baby in the baby carriage. If we get a new aunt, will she give us lots of fancy presents? Wait, she's not in the will, is she?
Oh, believe me, if Scrooge put her in the will, you would have to watch his back all the time.
Oh, yeah. Fun fact, Goldie in the original series and comics was actually aged, gray hair, and a lot more of a redneck vibe to her. Less devious, underhanded minx, more of a kick your arse and swindle you out of your fortune while she's at it type.
Yeah, that's before the Fountain of Youth.
That was before the reboot. And in the older comics, she was the sit on her ranch with a shotgun shooting anybody going after her gold type. Also, I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't specifically Goldie O'Gilt in the original. I think it was like Gilted Goldie or something like that. Something similar, but a slight variation on the name. And that's about it.
Including our little detour through Doctor Who continuity.
Yeah.
I love when that happens. It's like, welcome to Crush Wrecky Studios, where our reviews go way off track.
Where Orville will inevitably end up talking about how Discovery messed up the Klingons.
Yep. Or just in general talk about how sci-fi is supposed to be versus how classic, brilliant series have gone the wrong way.
Anyway,